Hello everybody, this is David Bianco. Hope you're having a great Memorial Day weekend. Well, it's Sunday, and I usually don't get mail on Sundays, but a box popped up early this morning, and I wondered, what could that be? Well, here it was. This is what I've been waiting for. It's just what I needed, as the Cars would sing. This is the high fidelity Rhino release of the Cars self-titled album. This is a 5,000 press limited edition, which Rhino is releasing, and it was mastered by Kevin Gray from the original AAA sourced analog tape. So we're talking the real deal. Now, this is one of my favorite albums. So although I have many copies, I wasn't really offended. Tell you why I wasn't offended. The MOFI release of this a few years ago was so disappointing. Oh, I have a review up on my channel, and you can watch it, and I panned it. It was just very disappointing. And so I was left with my original pressings, which I have two. I have one that was done at Sterling Sound, pressed at SRC, mastering with Sterling Sound, and George Marino did that. And then I have another that was pressed at in Compton at PRC West, or Precision West. So those two are pretty much the same. So when I speak of an OG and what I found, that's going to be those. And then another version that I have, and it's this one. It is a Half Speed Master by Nautilus that Jack Hunt did. And just to make a comparison in price, this one was an audiophile release consideration back then. That's what we considered it with mobile fidelity. And it was $17.50. Okay, so $17.50. And we're going to talk about the new one and the price of $40. But if you do the price comparison of the value of money and what is $17.50 worth today, I think you'll find that the $40 for the Rhino is right in line with what we were getting back in the day. Now, this one is just a standard jacket, no extras, no nothing. Virgin vinyl, very great vinyl, very quiet vinyl. Matter of fact, it even says it was mastered at Teledeck Vinyl, KM Records in Burbank, California. So on those, I mean, they were even that transparent back then about where it was actually manufactured. So we have the Nautilus to compare with the OG, and the Nautilus beat the OGs when I did my first shootout and had MOFI in there. It's a quieter pressing, but they sound very similar. There are not a lot of huge distinctions between them. The noise floor is probably the most obvious difference. But we now have a comparison to this new release that came out. And this is giving you a lot of extras here. First of all, it's in a heavy weight gatefold jacket. And it is, in fact, also including an exclusive insert with a Q&A from guitarist Elliot Easton from the band, one of the surviving members. But it also gives you this, and that is a photocopy of the actual analog tapes that were used for this. Now, this has been done before. This isn't totally unique, but it is a matter of the transparency that is coming out as it relates to getting your money's worth and knowing what you're getting. Part of this has come out because of the MOFI scandal. Some did it before then. So this is just a way to make sure everybody has that comfort level. Again, there's an interview with Elliot Easton, and then there's some background on the album and a few stats and things of that nature. So a nice little insert, a very strong tip-on jacket, which is of great quality. So that's your $40. But the more important part, of course, when you come down to it is, well, what about the record itself? Well, the record is sleeved in a nice rice paper sleeve inside this black. And so it's got one side has a black and red label with silver letters, and the other side has red background with black and silver letters. So very well done, very nicely done, very clean. I cleaned it, nothing on it really, very, very clean. Very well done. It was pressed at Optimal in Germany. And again, there's only 5,000 of these. So, it is going to definitely be a limited edition, but it is, in fact, still available, I believe, on the Rhino. Now, this is a direct-to-customer only. Don't go to your store looking for it. They won't have it. It only can be purchased online directly from Rhino. They packaged it well. It got here very quickly. So far, great job. So, putting it down on the platter, what do we end up with? Well, first I had to get the leveling done, and I would say that the Rhino pressing is about 2 dB louder than the OG and the Nautilus, so I had to adjust for that. But right out of the box, I would say that vinyl's very quiet, which is great. A very important characteristic for me, at least. So very, very quiet vinyl. And when it starts and when it goes, and you feel it and you hear it. And the sound stage is different. The sound stage is forward in towards me as a listener. You realize the OG and the Nautilus are pushed back a bit. They stand back. So they're kind of painted in a very flat landscape back toward the speaker. This one tends to pull forward and have some depth to it. Okay? It has some depth to it. So when the kick drums are kicking, you're feeling it, right? You're feeling it low. Okay? Definitely a huge difference in that area. Again, the clarity is super. The ability to pick up on the actual guitar work and the picks, which were always fairly decently pronounced, just really have a little more depth to them now than they did. An example, too, is like on my best friend's girlfriend, the hand claps. I have some image to them. They have some space to them. They're not just kind of a flat sound. They have a little bit of opening on them. A little bit, you can kind of feel a little bit of air kind of feeling of the clap, which is really great. The dynamic range here is much wider than the OGs, to the point where, the OG almost in comparison sounds a bit compressed. Now you start to get that impression. I can't say that I had that impression before, but now hearing it with this effort that was made by Kevin Gray, it makes me think it did have a little more compression than I realized it did. So this dynamic range is definitely where you want it. Really brings them towards you. And this is a bit of a crowded mix, I would say. There's a lot going on. And so that distinction is really important because you really can get some depth perception of the instrumentation and the vocalization, which gives you a little different perspective of the imaging. More like, it did have that studio kind of sound feel to it. I've been in recording sessions and heard things and then heard them played back, and it, that aura of you just were hearing that live in the room, and now you're seeing what it sounds like when it's combined and played back, really has that kind of an aura. But when you get to a quieter part of the vinyl, let's say all mixed up at the beginning of that, there's more very, very little keyboard and then some tapping of the cymbals and that as the song warms up. You start to see that this pressing and the earlier ones, the OG and the Nautilus, there's not as big of a gap. It's a little more, albeit it's quieter, but there's not quite as big a gap in the sound because the dynamic range of that particular piece is at the very beginning is fairly narrow, right? I mean, it's not, but man, as soon as the guitars hit and the drums hit, all of a sudden you're back in that this is real land. And you recognize that, that really the energy of this pressing and the mastering that was done just is so stellar and comes out right where you want it, right in your lap. So it just, I found myself after listening to the Rhino going back, and I was listening to some of the OG and the Nautilus, and I'm trying to listen for some things that I knew were there, but they weren't present to me. I had to kind of listen for them a little bit, as opposed to them saying, here I am, this particular sound or this particular piece of a vocal was just really evident. You had to kind of, from muscle memory and from recollection, have to come back to really recognize it. Oh yeah, it's there. There it is. Okay. The Nautilus and the OG both felt a little pulled back. In my opinion, and they were, they really had kind of not nearly as much of a three-dimensional sound to them whatsoever. So where do you go from here? Well, I'd say if you really like this album and you want a top copy, you want the best pressing that's out there, this is the one to get, bar none. I could easily say to you right now, I'm going to sell my other copies and never look back, never think twice about it. So, and plus you get these extras with them. And so for me, that's what a reissue should do. It's bring something to the table, and not just the materials, which is great, of course. But again, if the record's not great, then, what good does it do you? So I've got some mobile Fidelities I really don't need, and even my OG and my Nautilus, like I said, I really, those for me, with this one out there, there's no reason to have to even have those. This really just raises the bar, knocks it out of the park. And so for Kevin and the team at Rhino, and again, I want to mention Steve Westman, my buddy, had an interview with Kevin and the head of A&R for Rhino, which I will link for you up here. Take a listen to that. It's an interesting talk. And this is a great series. I hope they are, have quite a few in the queue. And I really love the fact that they announced it and you could order it and it's here and boom, that's it. None of this drama and, oh, they're coming and, oh, I really appreciate that Rhino and they did all this back leg work there and got it taken care of and got all the pieces of the puzzle ready and then said, boom, here it is, consumer. And that part of the direct-to-customer piece I really like, and I like that approach a lot because it really, for me, you kind of hear about it, you got it, you play it, you review it, boom, you go. And for me, they really did a top-notch job. So kudos to that team that brought this to the market. If you haven't ordered it and you really like this album, pick one up because I'm sure they're going to be gone. I have no doubt about that. If you're not a subscriber and you like what you've seen, I'd appreciate you considering subscribing by pressing on the bell down below to get your subscription started and get notifications of future releases. A thumbs up or like is always appreciated, as are comments. What do you think? Are you going to get one? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. So as always, thank you for taking the time to watch, and we'll catch you next time on our next Safe and Sound Texas audio excursion. Take care, everybody.